I am Meghan Coyle and CJF, and I live in Richmond, Kentucky.
You know, the very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the Mullins Farrier podcast. Just a note that if you are hearing this, you are not currently on our subscriber feed, and you will only be hearing the first part of this conversation. To access full new episodes, you will need to subscribe via the link in the show notes. We do offer scholarship subscriptions for anyone who requires one. Please reach out to us on Facebook Messenger for more details. If you enjoy what we are doing here, please consider subscribing.
I had a soccer coach, and he always said, we are going to be the fittest team always out there. Because in the moment, you don't want to be worried about being tired. You want to be focused on the soccer game.
Right.
Which is what's going to translate for me, hopefully, in the CJF runs, is that I'm not worried about being tired. I can focus on the task at hand.
And granted, he was like, get your specimens made. 3 months before you take your exam, get all your AW specimens made. And it's good to have other people putting that pressure on you as well. Sometimes if it's a single journey, and you've not got mentors that are coaching you, helping you, you kind of rest a little bit.
I like it. I think it keeps you every day, keeps my standards a bit better, keeps me trying to keep on top of stuff all the time. And I enjoy it as well, You come to these things and you chat about horseshoeing to folk and what you're doing at home, and you talk about horses you're shoeing and problems you have, and it's not just the actual competing, it's such a great source of education on lots of different levels.
Most people that I know in this industry only want the best for the other people in the industry, which is a pretty cool thing.
Welcome, everyone. A little shopkeeping before we start here. Dr. Simon Curtis is hosting the Hoof Balance 3 webinar on September 4th. This one has quite the crew of lecturers, including Simon, Matthew Jones, Mark Trussler, and David Nichols. The topic is 4 methods for foot balance, and those will be hoof mapping, trimming the solear plane, the spiral trim, and the traditional 3-view trim. To register, go to eventbrite.co.uk and search for the Hoof Balance 3 webinar. You can use the discount code Mullins, all caps, for a 30% discount upon checkout. I'd also like to tell you about a project that my good friend Brandon Paulson has started. It's called Shod with Love, and it's an upcoming foundation dedicated to assisting individuals pursuing an education in hoof care. Their aim is to generate funding through events and donations to provide financial aid for farrier schools and certifications. Shod with Love's first event will be a clinic and contest this October 11th and 12th with Mike Poe. Enjoy the crisp fall weather and beautiful foliage in the upper valley of New Hampshire while learning and competing among your peers. Visit shodwithlove.com for more details. Today's guest is a mover and shaker in the farrier world whose efforts have received a lot of well-deserved attention this past year. She's a brand ambassador for Mustad and recently had a feature article about her in the Equine Living in the Bluegrass magazine. Last year, Meghan traveled to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico as one of the clinicians in Vern Powell's crew. It was here that I was finally able to sit down with this ambitious woman to have a chat. Please excuse the constant construction noises in the background. This was the quietest spot we could find on the resort at the time. As usual, the crew at Canopy River were busy making the resort bigger and better than the year previous. As you will hear, Meghan is the type of person who has found her purpose through helping others, whether it be through her first career as a social worker or her second, helping horses. Through the interview and the Perto Vallarta trip as a whole, it was a great opportunity to get to know Meghan and what she's all about. A devoted mother and a passionate farrier, she somehow achieves the balance with humor and grace. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Now, there was a little bit of confusion before because you said you were from Burlington originally. And Burlington in which state? Because apparently it's not Burlington in Ontario.
No, I am actually from a small town outside of Burlington, Vermont. I'm from Colchester, Vermont. But I was in Burlington most of my life, where I went to college and all that stuff.
Okay. And your first foray into finding a career was not Farrier, was it?
No. I actually have a brother that has special needs. He is on the spectrum.
Okay.
So when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, I just thought it was natural for me to go into social work. So I actually completed 3 years of college in social work. So I worked with kids with autism. I thought I would be really good at it because I have a brother that I had lived with for 20 something years. And I just thought I would be really good at it. And I just got burnt out. The parents really burnt me out.
Oh, really?
It was never the kids. It was always the parents. And it's hard for me to judge parents with kids with special needs because I don't have one. And I'm sure it's extremely stressful and trying to give guidance to someone when I don't have that experience. It was really hard for me and for me to understand. And you kind of just get really just burnt out.
Right. What did that look like? Were you doing in-home visits or did they come to you?
Yep. In-home visits or at school, the things that we take for granted, like going to the cafeteria without being overstimulated and having a meltdown, or going to the post office and not feeling comfortable asking for stamps, and without the aggression part of being autistic is what everyone really worries about. So we try to
minimize that. And how does that work? Through exposure therapy or?
Yes. Yep. So there's a lot of agencies in Vermont because there's so many mental health issues in Vermont, and they have a.
You think in Vermont in particular?
I'm just so novice to other states because I've only lived in 2.
Right.
I just feel like there was a lot of services for people with mental health issues in Vermont in particular. And now I live in Kentucky, and I just don't feel like there is as much there was in Vermont.
Right.
And obviously Vermont's just such a smaller state too. Like the whole state, I think, has 600,000 people, and that is the population of Louisville, Kentucky. That could be it. My job was to expose children in schools, in their homes. One of the kids that I worked with, he was 4 years old, and when I met him, he didn't know how to eat with a fork, didn't know how to use the bathroom, didn't go out and have fun like normal kids. And so I worked with him for about 3 or 4 years, and he knew sign language when I was done with him. He knew how to use a fork. He knew how to use the bathroom on his own. He started doing sports, and so that was really rewarding.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so you got burnt out. What did that look like, and what did you end up doing because of it?
At the time when I was in school, my horse had some lameness issues, and my vet and my farrier didn't know why. So I started getting interested in that. And then I decided I wanted to go to vet school. So I went back to my advisor. It was like a Tuesday morning, and I was like, "Hi, can we talk?" And she was like, "Sure." And I was like, "Okay, well, I think I've decided I want to change my major." And she like rolled her eyes at me. "Just get back to me and let me know what you think." And she called me back like a couple days later, and she told me how much more schooling I had to do. Like I had to go back and take some of the requirements you needed for vet school. When I figured out how much more schooling I had and how much it was going to cost, it just discouraged me because at that time I was already 25 years old.
And done a lot of school at that point.
Yeah. So anyway, I was hanging out with my farrier, and I just asked him, I was like, "So do you have to go to school for this?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I went to Oklahoma. And so I started looking online, and I emailed some different schools, and only one got back to me. And that it was the Midwest Horseshoeing School with Steve Shimmershine. And I went and visited. It was the first time I ever saw hot shoeing, and I was like wowed and amazed, and just like, that was it. I gave him a deposit that day.
Oh, really?
Went home and sold all my stuff, and like moved out of my apartment and sold all my horses, and then I left.
Wow. Okay. So you went all in, burnt the ships, and
Yep.
went all
I
in.
had never left Vermont, ever.
Okay.
At the time, there was a small part of my life where I worked at the airport, and there was a guy there who also worked at the airport, and he flew all the way to Illinois with me. And then he got back on the plane and went back home
Oh, no way.
to like babysit me. I was like so scared.
Cool. And how long was that course?
It was a 3-month course.
And then how did that bring you to Kentucky? You were just like, this is the state with all the horses. I guess I better go.
So Steve Shimmershine took me for lunch and was like, "I have an apprenticeship set up for you. You have 2 choices." I was kind of wondering, I was like, why am I getting an apprenticeship? Because nobody else was getting offered one. So I was either like, am I really terrible and I need extra help? Or, is this a compliment? I don't know. So I could have gone to Florida with Robbie Huntsinger,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
or I could have gone to the Kentucky Horse Park, and I decided the Kentucky Horse Park.
Okay. And who did you work with there?
His name was John Vague, and he is no longer a farrier, but he was the master farrier at the horse park. At the time, I think he'd been working there for 7 years or something like that. So he did all the horses there at the horse park. There was, I don't know, like 100 horses between the big barn and the breeds barn and the Hall of Champions, and he's responsible for all of those horses.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was a pretty groovy apprenticeship for someone that at the time I wasn't working towards anything besides just learning how to like be an apprentice. But for someone that's doing their certification or competing in between shoeing horses, our job was to show the public that how to make shoes. Or
Oh, cool. Yeah.
so yeah, we had a farrier shop and they bring the horses in and people can watch us shoe it, and we talk to them, and if we didn't have any horses, we'd be foraging or talking about anatomy on like cadavers and stuff like that. So it was like a constant just practice.
Learning and practice. Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. And where did you go from there?
Well, after the Kentucky Horse Park, I went and worked at Root and Riddle for a short time because during my apprenticeship, I worked very closely with vets from Haggard, and I found out that some medicines can cause horses to founder, and some medicines can cause some issues, and I didn't know that. So I was like, I want to go to Root and Riddle, and I want to learn more about that.
Okay.
So I specifically asked, I was like, I know I can't work in podiatry because I'm just a green farrier, but I want to be as close as possible. So they put me in the barn closest to podiatry, which is barn 5, and that's where all of their horses go after like tenotomies and
Oh, okay.
a laminitic case or a keratoma removal or whatever. So I was in that barn all the time. So I got to help change bandages and watch them treat. And it was really, really fun. And what medicines they used for certain pathologies. And
Okay. What were some of the medications that I'm only familiar with a few vet related ones where it can actually cause it, but
Dex, that can cause some problems. And pentoxifylline does not cause a problem, but like how it will help the foot. So yeah, I just didn't know any of that information going to school.
right.
And maybe I was taught, I just was bombarded with all this information and didn't absorb any of it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I went to Root and Riddle. And I was there for like 8-9 months. And then I moved on to a small apprenticeship for a couple years with Sam and Kate Gooding
Okay.
at the Horseshoeing School in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. You really built a foundation. So at Steve's school, what did that look like? What was the arrangement there? I know every shoeing school seems to have a different setup as to how many horses the students do or how much book learning. What was it like?
If I can remember, this was like 11 years ago.
Yes.
And I've been to so many schools since then. Like I'm trying to make sure I get this school right.
Right.
I think I do remember that every morning for about 2 hours, we were in the classroom doing like anatomy. We had a test every Friday. So we'd have homework every day, and we had to have a written test and then an oral. We'd have to pick a pathology and like go in front of all the students and talk about it. And then I think there was like 2 days a week we were out trimming, get barns. And then the rest of the week we were in like the shop. I do not remember building shoes to feet. I do know that my shoe display for school is out of handmaids, but I cannot remember making handmaids at the horse. I'm pretty sure it was mostly keg shoes. And I could be wrong. Like I said, this was so long ago.
Right.
But I do know that my shoe board for school is made out of like a 1/4 inch. And it's hanging in my shop.
Oh, okay. Cool. And what got you into pursuing the certification route?
It's so funny. When I graduated, I had no interest in getting certified. I just wanted to be good. I wanted to be taken seriously, but I just was like, I don't need to be certified. It's fine.
Right.
There was a local farrier in Lexington I was chatting with, and I was like, I just want to like know more. I just want to know more. I want to be more handy. And he was like, like you should really call Kate at the school, and Kate and Sam were instructors there when Mitch Taylor wasn't around. And he told me, he's like, she's kind of tough. Be ready. And I messaged her. I had this like really sweet message. I was like, hi, Miss Kate. My name is so-and-so, and I got your name from so-and-so. And I'm really looking to expand my knowledge and get handy. And I think all she said was like, I can meet Tuesday. And I was like, okay.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. So anyway, I was like super excited. At the time, I had a fabric bag that you'd get at like Whole Foods full of my tools, like my hammer, my pritchel, and my pritchel was like poking a hole through it. And I remember walking up to her, like I saw her and I was like, oh God, like she was waiting for me at the school and she was standing next to Sam. And I was just like, okay, here we go. And I remember walking up to her and I was like, hi. I was like, I'm Megan. She's like, hi, I'm Kate. And I was like, so just pretend I don't know anything, like start from scratch. Let's just do this. She goes, don't worry, I will. I was like, okay. All right. So that's like the tough love that this other farrier was talking about.
Right.
And honestly, she has been like the best thing for my career, getting me out of my comfort zone. I remember I came into the shop. I was there every Tuesday for a year. And then it got every Tuesday, Thursday. And then it started to progress. And one day I came to the shop and she was like, hey, I signed you up for a contest. I was like, no, thank you. And she's like, I didn't say you had an option. And I was like, okay. So anyway, I went to a contest and then that turned into my certification and I was getting ready for it in 2017 and I got pregnant. Sam came up to me and he's like, I think you need to put your certification on hold. He's such a family man and he loves his kids. And he's like, your baby is your focus right now. Like you need to take care of your baby. And Sam went shoeing with me until I had my baby.
Oh, wow.
And our relationship is extremely close. Sam and Kate and Sam were leaving to move to Texas. Kate had already gone with her kids and Sam stayed until I had my baby and helped me shoe horses.
Wow.
He was the first one besides me and my husband to hold her.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like outside the door waiting.
You told us the other night over dinner that you actually shod horses up until it was like Thursday and you had your baby on Monday or something? How did that work?
So I shod horses with Sam's help. He would always sneak in there. He's like, oh, like, let me show you to do this. And he just hop in there and just start shoeing it. I'm like, well, what are you showing me? He's like, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm like, okay. He just didn't want me shoeing a lot pregnant. I didn't look pregnant until like my 8th month. I just popped out. It was like really big. He came with me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then on Thursday night, I texted him. I was past my due date. My due date was that Monday. And I was like, hey, I just don't feel good. Let's skip Thursday or whatever day it was. And like, we'll just shoe the next day. And he's like, okay. Well, I was actually going into labor. So we shot Thursday and I had her Saturday.
Wow. Okay. As you're 8 months pregnant and actually starting to show, how did that affect you shoeing wise? I can only imagine how difficult it would be. I know when I get a little bit of a beer paunch, how much it affects my back and my balance. Like, how did you feel during that whole process?
So my daughter was planned. When I found out I was pregnant, I kind of was like, I'm not going to let this affect my job. And I talked to my doctor about it. I was like, this is what I do for a living. And like, should I stop? And she said, no, like you're fit. Like you keep going. Just don't do any bad horses. Since Marame is my first child, like it was super easy for me. I didn't show until like 7 or 8 months.
Right.
It was hard mentally because I didn't want to let anyone down. Like
any of your clients.
Yeah. I don't want to hurt my baby and I don't want to let my clients down. And I didn't want to let down Sam or Kate. Like they were very like, hey, like you don't need to do that horse. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to eat. I'm about to have a baby. I need to eat. It was tough mentally because I just was like worried that people were going to fire me when they found out I was pregnant.
Right.
This one lady I've been shoeing, I still shoe for to this day. I've been shoeing for 10 years. And I told her a long time ago, I said, I'll never have help unless I'm pregnant. And I started bringing help around. And she just came out and asked me, she goes, are you pregnant? I said, yes. And she was the first person I told. She was like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And I was like, oh my God, she's so cool with it. That's
supportive,
awesome.
Yeah.
At that time, that was my most profitable year when I was pregnant. And nobody knew until
that 8 months.
And that's when I started telling everybody, hey, like I'm gonna have a baby in a month. This is what's gonna happen. You're gonna be taken care of. I had some people working for me at the time to help me out. I only lost one customer.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, I lost one customer and it was a weird situation.
If you would like to hear this episode in its entirety, please subscribe using the link in the show notes. Thank you for listening.